And we are live. Let me go live on Instagram because we have to do that separately. And there we go. And hello, everyone. It's the 5th of August, 2025. And this is Dr. Nelson. I'm in Central Florida. Please let us know where you are watching from on this globe. You can put it in the chat. For those that don't know who is here with me, Chris Brandlin, the carnivore lawyer, is with us, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his story, about his race to become a congressman, and what changes, if he could make changes to our whole system, he would concentrate on. Okay, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Oh, we just lost them. Please put it in the chat with a
Perfect.
Q, Q, Q.
Dr. Nelson, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but everything just got muted.
You're muted in your computer. Can you hear me? Check your...
It just turned on. We're good.
All right. Check your settings. Yeah. Okay. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat, QQQ in front of it, so I can see it easier. Hopefully I won't miss any questions.
All right.
For those that are here and are also taking the course that we're giving at Kills Health, tomorrow we have a surprise special guest who's going to be talking to us about reversing diabetes and other metabolic diseases from a coach's point of view. And I should say that in a couple of weeks, we're also going to have a few weeks. I think I gave you a date in September on how to set up a business for coaching. And we need to get together on the material for that. All right. So, Christopher Brandlin, go ahead and give us your elevator pitch about the powerful changes you've had in your health due to your diet changes, what happened before, and it's an interesting story.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Dr. Nelson. I know you said you have a special guest coming on later, so now I don't feel special. But anyways, my name is Christopher Brandlin. I am a licensed attorney for the past 14 years, but before I became an attorney, I was a very competitive athlete. I went into all natural bodybuilding. I did sprint triathlons as well, and I did very well. But let's say after I was competing, I passed the bar exam. And about 5 years after I started practicing law, I started developing some symptoms, some illness. I call it the auto umbrella of problems. You wake up, you have, chronic fatigue syndrome, you have fibromyalgia, you have everything. You have your painful joints, everything's just falling apart. And one of the things I was experienced was gut discomfort. And I was mainly on a ketogenic before this, where I was still eating meat, but I was eating a lot of plants with it. And then I made the biggest mistake by going to conventional doctors. I never used to go to doctors before this. I always went to doctors for broken bones, and because I've had plenty. I used to be a very bad stunt double. I still am, I guess. But I never went because I wasn't feeling well. So I felt very embarrassed, but I was like, I'm having some gut discomfort. So the doctor put me on a bunch of pharmaceuticals, and that's where things went wrong. It was basically laxatives, corticosteroids, and antibiotics. It completely incinerated my gut. Started in 2016, and then 1 year later got so bad where the gut discomfort turned into gut inflammation. And I was no longer a patient. I became a routine customer, because every time I came back to the doctor every couple of weeks, They're just giving me more and more medications, and they're rotating, and it just made me very, very sick and painful. I was barely able to work and function. I cut off my social life. I stopped dating, and it got to a point where they referred me to a colorectal surgeon and said, "Hey, you got really bad gut pain." I'm like, "Yeah, it's after I've been taking this." But anyways, he recommended to remove a piece of my intestine. He promised me I'd be so much better. It's going to be done laparoscopically to remove about 6 inches of my sigmoid colon, which is the lower end of your intestine. And that's when things went even worse. Right from the surgery that happened first thing in the morning, I woke up prematurely from the surgery where they're sewing up my intestines, and I woke up. I felt everything. So I screamed as loud as I could in the hospital. They gave me a bunch of tramadol and morphine to put me back to sleep and sedate me. Woke up about 12 hours later. I'm in the hospital just drugged up, and I just couldn't function. I couldn't move because I used to be a very competitive athlete with, using a good core and sitting up out of bed really easy, and I just couldn't sit up. Everything was just so painful. 2 days later, they're like, "Hey, we're going to release you." I'm like, "I got to make sure this thing's working. Like, don't I want to make sure this gut's working before you release me?" And the doctor's like, "Oh, you'll be fine." And started having really bad pain for the last couple of weeks, barely be able to move my bowel. And I got to a point where I started developing a swelling right about 2 inches below my belly button. So the surgery was laparoscopic, which means it's very minimally invasive, small incisions, but they always do one main incision. That they call that the anastomosis site. The anastomosis site for me was 2 inches below my belly button, where they kind of like remove that. But that's where the most pain was, and it developed a huge swelling 2 inches below my belly button. I developed like a grapefruit size infection, and they were ignoring it. And then finally got so bad where I took a photo. I sent it to the surgeon. He said, "Get to the ER immediately." Went straight to the ER a couple weeks after the surgery, and they didn't even give me anesthesia because there was an emergency procedure. They said, we don't want to put you we don't want to sedate you. We don't want to put you to sleep. We got to cut this open. So they just injected some lidocaine, and they just got a scalpel, and they cut right open, right where I was awake, and they recut open that main part of my infection. And I was awake the entire time. I was biting my tongue to the point where I was bleeding from my mouth. And then they didn't even sew it back up. They basically said, "Hey, change your gauze every couple hours or 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, evening, just change the gauze because we don't want to kind of like sew it back up because the infection came from the inside. We want to dry it out." And I was protecting as much as possible, and it still got infected a couple of weeks later. They had to cut me open again, awake the entire time. So you can see how I have a little bit of distrust in the conventional medicine. So I obviously have an obvious bias. So it got to a point later where I was keeping it from getting infected, but it was still so painful, and I didn't want to remove the rest of my intestines. I'm like, "Oh my God, I just made the worst decision of my life. I listened to a conventional doctor because I thought he was going to help me. He made me so much worse. I got all these drugs that like killed my gut, and now they cut open my intestines. I may lose the rest of my intestines." So he actually had the nerve I'm not going to say he had the balls because he didn't have any balls, but he had the nerve to tell me that, "Hey, we should probably remove the rest of your intestines because you're still having problems." And I just completely flipped out on him. I gave him the biggest middle finger. I said, "I'm going to do some extensive testing to see what's going on with me." I did extensive blood work. It did show Lyme and some co-infections that could have provoked some kind of inflammation, but I still don't believe to this date that that's the true part of my problem. My true part of my problem is conventional medicine made me 10 times worse. I think if I would have known about a carnivore diet back then, or fasting, or some hyperbaric oxygen therapy, I could have put everything back in remission. But instead, I listened to the conventional doctors to heal me. They made me much worse. I ended up, to save the rest of my intestines, I did a 10-day water fast because I did small fast, but I was like, I need to do something extensive. I need to heal this. I don't want to remove the rest of my intestines. But this was the only time I decided to refeed on only meat because I was looking into the GAPS diet by Dr. Natasha McBride, and it was all focused on, bone broth was like the healing for the elimination diet when you're healing your intestines. Bone broth, and you start introducing foods later. And so anyways, what I did, I wasn't gonna do the bone broth. I was like, it seems that meat is the main kind of nourishing, kind of healing focus of this GAPS diet. Let me just focus on just meat. And this was the first time I just did a slow roasted steak, and it felt amazing after a 10-day fast, because most fasting clinics, I'm not sure if you know, Dr. Nelson, they're all vegan clinics. And so I actually went to those. I was getting so much worse. I was feeling good for the fast for a couple of days. Then all of a sudden I refed on plants, and like, sometimes they'll give you green juice. It still kind of was like caused me gut problems. So I felt so amazing. And then I started doing elimination after that. I was like, all right, let me just try it out. Every time I was eating like, different types of meat, whether it was beef, chicken, or fish or pork, I wasn't having any problems. I'd have a little histamine reactions to like bacon and pork and stuff like that, but I wasn't having any major problems. But the moment I started introducing vegetables, it started causing problems. I'm like, all right, there's something to this. I can't eat vegetables. I think when my body was so inflamed, I can only eat meat, because meat is something that your body needs. It's the only true nourishing kind of like, part of your diet that we've been eating for 2.5 million years. So then I looked into the carnivore diets, and some people said, hey, like, because I came from the fitness community, all my friends were like, you may have to go on an all meat diet for the rest of your life. We heard these people are doing this carnivore diet, and that's all they eat is just meat. They're like, Chris, they call me Giggity. They're like, Giggity, you could, that's a weird nickname. They're like, hey, you could probably just eat meat for the rest of your life. And I was like, all right, you know what? You're probably right. So I looked into it. I ended up Skyping with Michaela Peterson, it was a phone call with Michaela Peterson before she became popular in 2018, and then I wanted to get more into it. I was picking everybody's brains, and I Skyped with Dr. Baker before he became very popular. And then I decided to go to the Paleo Medicina Clinic on Thanksgiving Day in 2018, in November, to meet with Dr. Sophia Clemens. And that made the biggest difference, because I stayed there for over a week and ate nothing but meat. And they didn't allow me to take any supplements. And I'm glad they made that, because they made one rule. You eat meat, fat, salt, water, nothing else. We don't give you no LMMT, no kind of electrolyte bull crap, just beef, salt, fat, and water.
Pure. Most supplements are really unnecessary if you're eating.
Exactly. If you eat a really clean, proper human diet, you don't need that. But anyways, when I came back to the United States, I wanted to promote the carnivore diet. So I was already a dietetic technician. So even after I passed the bar exam, I got some additional licenses. I became a dietetic technician. It's kind of like a step below a registered dietitian. I did my clinical rotations in the hospitals. And that's where I was already seeing that these dietitians, they weren't even focused on the people's diet. They're actually like, oh, this is how much metformin you should take before you eat a carbohydrate meal. I'm like, why don't you just give them to switch the meal? So I was already kind of learning this. But when I came back to the United States, I wanted to promote it. I was speaking out to promote, I was like, everybody's been demonizing meat. It just saved my life. It saved the rest of my gut. We should be praising meat. And anyways, I wanted to get my master's in dietetics, because I already had a DTR certification. And when I told them I wanted to flip the food pyramid upside down at USC, the head kind of like dietetics clinic, they're like, oh, we don't think you're a proper fit, because your mindset is not in the right direction. They didn't want to flip the food pyramid upside down. I said, so I gave them another middle finger. Sorry for my middle fingers again. But anyways, I decided to, get my MBA. And then when the vaccines were forced on the American people, on all healthcare workers and government employees, I was the only attorney in LA County with the balls to speak out, because all my colleagues who didn't even agree with the vaccines, like, oh, we don't want to speak out. We don't want to lose our client base and all that. And that's why I say a lot of attorneys, they don't have balls. I'll say that publicly on TV. I don't give a crap. But anyways, I was like, you're not going to speak out with something that's very likely going to be damaging the American public. And even if they wanted to be sheep, it should be voluntarily. You should not force vaccines on the American public. I was like, this is such a disgrace. When I spoke out against the public, I was speaking out against the LA Superior Court. I almost got sanctioned. People try to report me to the California State Bar and the Texas State Bar, because I'm licensed in Texas as well, and I'm also limited practice in Nevada. So they're trying to report me in every different way. I'm like, you know what? They dismiss all the claims, because I was like, I kind of really defended. I was like, I got my freedom of speech. I'm promoting my honest opinion based on my beliefs, based on my observations. And I said, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to get my PhD in public policy. I'm running for Congress. This was in 2021. So I started my PhD. So I'm not sure if you know, Dr. Nelson, most politicians, their background is primarily in law or public policy. I already got a very detailed background in law. I got a detailed background in health and even doing clinical rotations in hospitals. I'm like, let me get everything. Let me get public policy. I'm going to get my PhD in public policy. I'm going to oversize all my opponents. And I am going to make some changes at a congressional level, because I don't think we have enough people making sure that the voices are heard at higher levels. So I decided to get my PhD in public policy and public health. and I'm trying to finish off my oral defense. I'm on my last stage of my dissertation. I just turned 40 to become Dr. Brandlin. And I made my announcement on Fox News that I'm running for Congress for the House of Representatives in Nevada, which is my other state because I'm a dual resident, for the midterm elections of 2026. And that's why I'm here today.
And you're still at the primary stage.
Yes.
And you have, that you know of, how many other people are running for that seat?
Actually, they said the 3rd district of Nevada is one of the most competitive districts, but I still believe that I can beat any all my other components. When I look at their background, and a lot of them have a lot of bad dirt. Maybe they've already been in, if they've already been in politics, they kind of develop a lot of dirt, and a lot of them are bought out. A lot of them are getting donations from certain corporations. Did you know that 2/3 of Congress is basically receives donations from big pharma? But anyways, including some of the doctors. There's a doctor that's come on against me, and there's another guy that's running against me, and his entire background is in video games. But he's the wealthiest guy. They're like, oh, he's got so much money. I was like, yeah, he's one of the Halo group, but I think he's kind of like promoting like the future pedophiles of America by creating video games. If that's what you want running this country, and he's been only in video games, I was like, why don't you have someone with a more diverse background that's actually going to look out for the right and the health of the American people? And that's where I think I can fit in.
So we have a question here, which kind of probably ties us over to the next subject you want to talk about.
Sure.
Juliet Marie asks, are you involved with the Make America Healthy Again?
Yes. In fact, my manager came from Team Kennedy. So I got connected with people from Team Kennedy in 2024 when I was already planning to run. I was like, I'm about to finish up my PhD. I'm about to turn 40. I was actually planning to run for Congress for 2028, 2030, 2032. Because I was like, I've been just going to school, like ever since I passed the bar exam, I'm always going to school with like the master's, and I got additional bachelor's degrees, and now I'm getting the PhD. I'm like, I'm turning 40. I need like a vacation, maybe, I'm Italian. I haven't even visited my relatives in Italy. I've never even been in Italy. It's kind of like a disgrace that they call me. But I was like, but I said, I want to run down the line. I was like, talking about running for Congress in 2028, 2030. And they said, hey, you're a dual resident in Nevada. You should run it for Nevada because 2026 is coming right along, and we think you can take out Susie Lee, and with our help. So my manager jumped on board, and she started helping me out, and that's where I met with Bobby Kennedy and the inauguration. So yes, I am part of the Maha movement. I'm embracing the Maha movement.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I was going to ask you if you know the history, in particular, of the guidelines that came out in, I think it was 1977, and what happened there.
Was this the low-fat craze?
Well, we've had the low-fat craze since the 50s and 60s, particularly when President Truman, I think it was, had a heart attack, and even at that time, the people were blaming the fat. So we've been on a low fat for more than 70 years now. But in the 70s, when the pyramid came out, and even though we had multiple guidelines, for 100 years, we've had different guidelines from the government on how to eat. But that particular edition in the history of what has been happening with the pyramid, it's important to understand, because in the 70s we were giving a lot of subsidies to the farmers that were growing the wheat, the corn, the soy,
and now we're giving them less subsidies, and we're putting more restrictions on the American farmers, and that's why I speak out against them too. Yeah.
And we had to do something with that. So the powers that be that were putting together the guidelines ended up recommending now like 6 to 11 servings of grains a day, and a little bit of amount of meat. And then later iterations of the guidelines are pretty much the same, whether it's the plate, the pyramid, doesn't matter what the shape is.
It's all part of an agenda. They're trying to fatten us up and make us sick like big fat cows so they can control us. And not just that, I just did a real look at I'm getting a PhD, so I'm not going to be a medical doctor. I'm a research doctor technically. So all I've done was kind of research probably a couple thousand journals on the same exact topic. And actually my PhD, my dissertation topic is actually about the health and ethical issues surrounding the vaccines. So you can see this kind of like this trait behind it, that they're trying to get a little bit more control of the American people. And, I reasonably believe that they're trying to make us fatter and dumber, because, I actually just did a huge amount of research about the increase of carbohydrates basically depreciating your cognitive function, and that ketogenic diets are doing the opposite, and that a higher intake of sugar actually accelerates dementia in elderly individuals, and it also accelerates mental illness and depression. So they're almost trying to like make us psychotic and mentally ill, and that's why you see all these climate activists burning Teslas and crap.
Well,
is that too far?
Just in the past couple of weeks, another study has been published, and I don't have the citation here, but basically two groups, the group on a very strict ketogenic diet, it was sort of quasi-carnivore diet, brain blood flow increase on the ketogenic group, as opposed to the other group. Do you do any fasting, Christopher?
Yeah, I still do fasting, but you know what I started incorporating a little bit more, maybe a little too extreme for people, is dry fasting. Because, I'm not sure if I told you that even though I got so much better in promoting this and not completely back to my bodybuilding shape when I was Mr. Los Angeles Natural in 2010, but I'm trying to get back in shape. But I got sick a couple of years ago from mold, and I had to put on a lot of weight because I lost a lot of weight. And I realized I couldn't do extensive fasting when I was trying to gain weight and maintain weight. So what I started doing instead, I really investigated dry fasting to a huge extent. And that if you do a 2 to 3 day dry fast, it's almost equivalent to like a 7 to 10 day water fast, where you wouldn't have to kind of I want to say malnourish yourself as much. And I can eat more. But yeah, usually I love intermittent fasting. I usually eat like lunch and dinner, or sometimes I'll eat dinner. But if you eat a larger meal, you just got to take more time to kind of like slowly consume it. I've learned that, I actually eat, look, I'm about 145 to 150 pounds, 5'9", and I think my body fat's still in the single digits, but I eat probably 3 to 4 pounds of meat sometimes. But that just kind of shows you that, but I'm also kind of very active. I do a couple hundred push-ups and handstand push-ups and pull-ups every day, and I also do rock climbing, and I do mixed martial arts on the weekends, and now I'm going to be riding a bull next month too. So yes, I do incorporate fasting, but I learned when I can't lose too much weight, I actually what I'll do instead is I'll do I can't advise this, I'm not a medical doctor, and you kind of assume the risk, but I want you to look into it, as dry fast, like a short 24 to 48 hour dry fast.
I've done, I can't remember if it was 32 or 42 hours.
Dry
fast.
Yeah, no, I think it actually can really also manage infections better, because a lot of people don't realize that just water itself, like just liquids, when it, you can actually, infections also feed off of moisture too. And that's why, going to go back to 2017, when they said they want to basically have me change the gauze and dry out the infection, they actually had a point about that, because when you sew up an infection and you have too much moisture while there's a present an infection, it becomes a breeding ground for more bacteria. So when you look into the dry, I want to get more books on this and look into more, but I think I've done 2 different 72-hour dry fasts, but I never want to take any antibiotics. I do ozone therapy, I'll tell you that. Ozone therapy is a little different. I have an ozone sauna that actually got shipped from Europe too. It's pretty badass. I do hyperbaric oxygen therapy probably 1 time a week, medical grade, because unfortunately, I'll admit my vice, Dr. Nelson. I sleep less than the average individual, but as you see, running your own practice and running a campaign and finish off your PhD at night, and just dealing with people's problems for a living, you're not going to get much sleep. I am so glad I'm not a father or a husband, because I'd be a horrible father and husband. I'd never be around. But I do medical grade hyperbaric oxygen therapy once a week because I know that my body is taking more of a beating than usual.
How many atmospheres? How many atmospheres?
I do it. I do it at least 2.0 atmospheric units because, as my understanding, because I did some research, I actually did some classes on medical grade hyperbaric oxygen therapy training, and the reason why I don't recommend people to do the soft zip up chambers is because it only goes to 1.3 atmospheric units, which is about equivalent to about 10 feet underwater. But when you do 2.0 atmospheric units, that's where it becomes antimicrobial, where you can actually kill off infections with just pure oxygen. And it creates angiogenesis, which is a creation of red blood vessels.
Yes, I've spoken to spoke to a guy who's been dealing with hyperbaric oxygen therapy chambers, manufacturing, and knows a lot of the science. And basically, all these outpatient places where you could go, most of them, they only have the zip up 1.3 maximum.
No, I mean those,
and that is not enough. Basically,
no, it's not. I think it could be just helpful just for getting a little bit of oxygen to your body because, as you probably would agree, Dr. Nelson, as a lot of us are oxygen deprived for a lot of different reasons. But you can basically get some benefits, but the pure benefits, if you really want to see some healing, you go to a medical grade hard chamber, and I actually represent some of the medical grade clinics over here in California, and I started working with the one in Nevada and Las Vegas where the UFC fighters go. So actually, there's one that's called Desert Moon Wellness where all the UFC fighters go after their Saturday matches or after their training. So because they're open on Saturdays as well, and actually seeing some of the UFC fighters. But I actually I made friends with the owner, and I promote them too because I'm one of the only attorneys promoting medical grade hyperbaric oxygen clinics because I'm the only attorney, by the way, that refers a personal injury client with traumatic brain injury to a medical grade hyperbaric oxygen therapy clinic because I tell them they're not going to be seeing any shit or changes with their neurologist or their primary physician who's going to give them a bunch of medications and Tylenol. I'm like, you're just going to be, you're going to be destroying your liver. That's all you're going to be doing.
People who deal with cancer and they are like Dr. Seifried, who talks about the metabolic tier of cancer, they and all other researchers, they talk about using hyperbaric oxygen therapy as part of the protocols that they recommend, but it's got to be higher than the zip up.
And actually they always tell you that if they usually go up to about a max of 3.0. And actually I actually did utilize hyperbaric oxygen therapy in conjunction with the carnivore diet because I wanted to heal as fast as possible. And even though I was healing a lot faster with the carnivore, I just noticed that when your body is very inflamed, I developed a rare skin disease, which is only affecting like 1 out of 200 million people. It's called pyoderma gangrenosum. Not sure if you ever heard of it, but you could probably put the words together. Pyoderma, derma meaning skin, gangrenosum like gangrene. Basically, it's a inflammatory skin disease. It becomes infectious, but it starts eating up your skin almost like leprosy, basically, where you'll start developing these bruises on your limbs. I didn't have it anywhere on my face, but I started getting these bruises, and these bruises would turn into ulcerations to the point where I can stick my finger in my wound in my hip and I can feel my hip bone. That's how bad it got. So I actually did medical grade hyperbaric oxygen therapy in conjunction with the carnivore diet when I was just learning. And when you realize the benefits personally with the personal observation, you get so intrigued and interested, like, oh my God, FUCK, the practice of law. I'm going to focus on health. I'll still do this because it's just easy. And, I got family of attorneys that have been doing it for years. It kind of comes ingrained. But no, I want to do this. I want to focus on getting myself better. And that's where I don't promote. I do admire peptides, but I don't like how people are getting all this Ozempic and GLP crap. I'm like, no, this is just, there's too many side effects of that. And when you think about it, when they say, hey, what about stem cells? I'm like, they're great. I utilize those too, but if you eat a proper human diet, you shouldn't need any of this crap. But I do but you do need oxygen.
So that is, I think that is the key, because there are many things out there that will help with biohacking your health in general.
Red light therapy, cryotherapy,
But throughout the years, I'm old enough that I have seen all the trends in the past 45 to 50 years, whether it's the juicing or this supplement or this superfood, and they demonstrate some improvement, which as long as you improve 1% over the control groups, you're golden, because then you can claim, oh, this is better than. But if you don't have a proper human diet and species specific way of eating, all the other things are not gonna take the place of your diet.
And that's why I tell a lot of people, like, I actually represent and refer a lot of people to an ozone clinic here in Los Angeles County, because I'm in Los Angeles for a couple of days of the week, and I'm the rest of the time in Nevada. But in LA, there's something called the Holtorf Medical Group. I highly recommend them. I like their main doctor, Dr. Holtorf, because he's anti-vax like myself also. But, they do ozone therapy, which is actually an oxygen-based therapy that people don't realize. You just have a third element of oxygen that makes it ozone, which can become antimicrobial. But when I see them also serving like fruit, like snacks and like fruit juices, I'm like, why are you going to do all this anti-inflammatory? They're actually having a medical grade hyperbaric oxygen therapy. You're having ozone. Why the FUCK are going to give them a fruit juice right after? Why are you giving them straight sugar, which is a straight inflammation? I always make a big point of that when I see it at a doctor's office. I'm like, you're supposed to be helping people. You're killing people. So sometimes I'll just go in and I'll just drop off flyers. I'm going around. But then when I see a functional health doctor like promoting this, I'm like, I thought you were alternative health. You're just promoting crap. So I have to call people out occasionally. You got a question for you, Dr. Nelson?
Yeah. I just finished last Thursday a 22-day.
22-day? I was going to say, you look very slim, man.
Thank you.
You didn't even eat at my meetup. That's right.
Yes. I was fasting. So Dr. Kills finished 15 days. About a week before me, and I have done 22 days. I ate last Thursday, and yeah, we're doing great. Now, one thing a strange thing that has happened is I was drinking coffee. I was even doing the fast, a cup of coffee, a little bit of heavy whipping cream, a little bit of butter. I have lost the desire to drink coffee, so I had not had coffee. I had not had coffee for about 5 days, and had a little bit today, and I was like, I don't know. It broke. You can call it broke my addiction. I don't get withdrawal symptoms. So, anyways.
That's good. You know what? And I try to recommend for a lot of people that are doing carnivore that caffeine or coffee, especially black coffee, it's basically inflammation to your gut. You're just feeling the fuel for a lot of people that really want to heal. But and I know Brenda's reaching out and not do extended. Maybe you should look into the dry fasting. Maybe I'll host a dry fasting. But I actually
Brenda's very slim, so I think if you don't have excess weight on you, prolonged fasting of any kind, probably
you need to build up your stores. Basically, I was saying go to my next meetup, and we're gonna have. We still had leftover meat because the meat caterer at my meetup, Dr. Nelson, I actually did some legal work for him, Chuck, and I got him out of a workers' comp claim. So he actually served me double the amount of meat because I asked for meat for about 100 people, and we had less than 100. I think we had like 60 or 70 total coming in and out. But he actually gave me so much meat, and he's like, "Hey, the next time you're in, I have double that." So, so in January we'll be hosting another meetup, but hopefully you can eat this time, so we can enjoy some basically bottomless steak that you'll keep eating. It'll just keep coming to you.
I had to miss eating in about 3 meetups.
Oh,
because we've been busy doing. We went to Las Vegas. I went to Montello. I went to there was another one, and
we got Ohio in a couple of weeks too. I'll be there.
We're gonna be in Ohio. We're gonna be in San Diego. next week and the following, about 10 days later, I'll be in Ohio. Dr. Kills will be in Wyoming.
Yeah, I saw that.
Anyway, Amy is reminding me that it was President Eisenhower who had a heart attack in office. And even then, they were blaming the fat and the cholesterol on, the heart attacks on that. And that hasn't changed from mainstream medical advice, unfortunately.
And this is where I can become a very good weapon for the carnivore community against Congress, because I have a very detailed background in all the clinical studies, and I can, not just that, you know how to distinguish certain science from others, because they all say, what does the science say? It's all enclosed. Like, but if you take the clinical studies that they're using for these pharmaceutical companies, you look at the authors and you see, and they have a conflict of interest statement. And Dr. Barry and I had a podcast where we discussed this. That conflict of interest statement should be at the very top of the study. And people that are writing these type of studies or authoring it, they should be like the NASCAR drivers. They should be wearing a shirt, sponsoring all the pharmaceutical companies they're tied to show you. And when you see that, they're like, oh, that's why they didn't discuss the risk and adverse effects of all these pharmaceuticals.
At least it would give us full disclosure to whoever is looking or hearing that advice.
Yeah.
You have to take it with a grain of salt when you're getting money from an industry in general.
I even bashed my own party about the pharmaceutical funding. And I have some Republicans like, oh, how dare you bash? I was like, yeah, because more Democratic congressmen receive funding from pharmaceutical companies. That's very obvious. It's almost double, actually. It's like $26.2 million were given over to the Democrats, and about $16.1 million was given over to the Republicans. So it's almost double. But I'm like, you still have a huge load of my own party. I call them rhinos. But yeah, they're also they're still feeding themselves from funding. And the problem is, because this is why I'd rather work my ass off during my campaign and just get small amounts of money from the American people. I'd rather have 100,000 people donate me a couple bucks or $5 and go to a big corporation and ask them for a $20,000 check to my campaign. Because if you accept a large amount of money from any kind of corporation or company, or even a very, very wealthy individual, they have control and they can influence a lot of your policies. And this is where I have a very strong anti-establishment stance when it comes to this topic.
Yeah. Question for you: are your gut issues today all resolved?
Oh, yes, for the most part. The only thing I will admit is that I still have, even though I took so long to remove the scar tissue, scar tissue is almost impossible to completely remove internally. If you look, I had like stem cells, everything to get like the aesthetic kind of portion like licked, so you can still see a little bit of scar, but internally it's always more restrictive where they cut me open, because they just damaged all the fibers. And once your body tries to restore all those fibers, it's never going to be the same. So I have to stretch and mobilize that more than usual. One thing I will tell you, Julia, is that regardless of how clean you eat, if you're exposed to mold, you will always have problems. And when I go back, and this is a reason why I like Nevada more than LA, is because LA, the humidity is between, floats around between 70 to 85% sometimes even 90%. Whenever the humidity is more than 60%, mold can constantly grow. And even if you're eating a proper human diet, if you're breathing in mold spores, you're breathing in fungus. So whenever I'm exposed to mold, it is my kryptonite. It completely wrecks my gut and makes me sick, even if I'm fasting. So I will just be transparent and tell you that if I'm exposed to mold, I call it little bitch syndrome, LBS. Sorry.
All right. If you have any questions, put them in the chat with QQQ. So, there are certain topics, unfortunately, we cannot talk about in YouTube because they're still striking channels. But hopefully people can discuss more openly their opinions. Whereas 5 years ago, you couldn't give a dissenting opinion, even if you could legitimately have an opinion. If you were a doctor, a physician, even a researcher that was involved in the topic, you couldn't, if you were a dissenting opinion, you couldn't give it, because that was
well,
it.
that's something I want to change, even if I get a lot of death threats along the way. And yeah, that's something we will change.
Because
but we'll talk about other topics. But I want you to bring up to one point. Do you know why Google has so much censorship?
why?
Who owns Google?
As far as a company, or like
yeah, it's a company. It's owned by a company, just because they kind of like shell these companies. It's Alphabet Incorporated, which is one of the 5 high tech companies. Okay, but the CEO of Alphabet Incorporated is actually Sundar Pichai, who came on board, and he is completely tied to all these companies. And actually, he was the one that was for forced vaccinations. I won't talk about it more, but just saying that's one of the reasons why you can't talk about it.
Yeah. I think science for thousands of years has been changing, but as we find out more things. But
yeah, so
the only way
this is what changes science.
No, but legitimately changing. I mean,
Okay.
people believe that the Earth was flat. Now they believe it's round because someone there questioned the science.
And they believe men can get pregnant, right?
So, well, I'm not talking about that one either. But
we don't let
the science is questioning the science, and you have to be open to discussing the theories without censure on half the population.
And you should be able to question whatever you're taught. And this is why I want more doctors to have more balls, like Dr. Berry, Dr. Kiltz, Dr. Baker, and Dr. Shafee, who actually questioned on what they're taught in their medical institutions, because we've already confirmed that the primary core concept in all medical institutions. And I have a lot of doctor clients right now, and they will even admit it. It's all pharmacology. They spend less than 20 hours on nutrition, all medical schools in their entire career, because it's all kind of who's their biggest donors of all these medical institutions. It's the pharmaceutical companies. And this is something that I do appreciate that RFK is trying to change too, but it's going to be a very long haul. But I always recommend for everybody to question what they're taught. Look behind it. If someone shows you a study saying that meat is bad for your heart, look at the actual studies, see what they were actually eating. Were they eating just meat? Were they eating a bunch of crap with it too? And who is funding that study? Who is the person involved? Oh my God, he's part of the vegan plant-based diet. Oh my God, he works with soy boobs Billy Gates. He likes making lab-grown meat. That's why he's writing this book. This is what people should question your science.
Definitely. When it comes to red meat and epidemiological studies, you keep hearing every few months, every year, more evidence comes out that red meat causes cancer. But when you look at the data they're looking at, first of all, it doesn't bear it, or there are associated factors that are very difficult to take apart from just red meat, the confounders, they are called. And then the hazard ratio of those studies in relation to causing cancer is 1.1, when 1 is the general population.
Yeah.
So
that's why a lot of these studies can be, distinguished and kind of picked apart, because there's so many intrinsic factors that affect the study's outcomes. And even if a person is eating meat and develops cancer, what the hell else was he eating too? Oh yeah, he was on a bunch of drugs and pharmaceuticals. He was eating actually a very heavy carbohydrate diet in conjunction to the meat, and not just that, he was drinking a bunch of alcohol and taking a bunch of narcotics. That could probably influence some of his cancer, right?
So, Cincinnati, Ohio, August 23rd. You go to.
Oh, it's Columbus, Ohio.
It's
Columbus. I think it's Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio. Sorry if I said something different. He's asking about Cincinnati, but
okay.
I think Columbus, Ohio, August 23rd, killedmeetup.com we have links to a bunch of the different meetups across the country. And let me see.
Oh, can I raise my hand and talk about 2 meetups?
Go ahead.
All right. Also, the Fort Worth meetup, Dr. Kiltz now just told me, I think it was texting me and Alio was texting me, that he wants, because you guys continued the Syracuse meetup till next year, right? There was going to be a Syracuse meetup. So September 27th, we've already reserved that with my friends in Texas. Remember, I'm licensed in Texas, and we have the Carnivores in Texas and Fort Worth. September 27th is going to be the Fort Worth meetup. I believe Dr. Kiltz will be there with Ashley Rogers and Nia and Kimberly as well. And actually, after the meetup, I've already signed up, and I'm a contestant in the professional bull riding contest. It's 7:30 at night at the stockyards, and that will be September 27th. And then the following month, October 11th, there's some people in the Reno and Tahoe area that wanted to do a meetup. And I told them, if you guys want to do a meetup, I will come out to you and I will co-host a meetup with you. So October 11th, Michelle and I are going to be hosting a Reno meetup, and we already have some groups of people, and that's going to be very affordable. I think we're having probably about $60 a head for a huge Brazilian steakhouse.
Send the information to Alia. Alia will put the link in our page. Very good. Any questions? Put them in a chat, please. So let's say you could start, you have big projects, big ambitions. I support that because we need to make a change, right?
Yeah.
But we do know that changing government,
it's not going to be overnight. Yeah.
It's a big task. So where would you start? Let's say you become the congressman. You're going to be a junior congressman. Nobody's going to be paying attention to you, right?
Yeah. I'll be disrespected,
Congress.
But I'm expecting that.
Yes. But let's say, where will you start? What are you going to be getting involved with?
You know, one thing as an easy focus is getting more attention and support for the American farmers and restricting a lot of foreign investors from taking over the farmland, because I've actually met with a lot of individual American farmers on what their restrictions with the regulations and their ability to afford their farm practice. And the problem is because we have an agricultural monopoly where there's big corporations such as BlackRock that are buying a lot of the farmland and making it almost nearly impossible for farmers to basically benefit or profit off their own crops. Okay, so I'd want to put more rights for the American farmers. They should have the first right of refusal, basically, for a lot of the farmland, and more subsidies. And not just that, I think we want to have more attention, because I do believe that I'm putting together a protocol with Dr. Berry to make meat affordable again. I think when we like that, have you guys ever seen changing government is like changing vegans' mind about carnivore? I like that. No, but I don't think you're going to be making changes to the government overall, but we will have more and more people to take a consensus to take a vote. And I could already tell you that, you know, Tom Massey, Republicans can either hate or love him, but he is one of the few that's kind of speaking out for the American farmers, and there's a few others too. And I think if we get more and more involved with it, we're going to start, it's not going to be so lopsided. And Dr. Berry made a very good point in our last podcast. He says, you know, he actually made the same exact point that you just made, Dr. Nelson. You know, if you're a junior, he called it a freshman congressman. If you're going to be a freshman congressman, then people are not going to want to listen. You won't get any time at any congressional hearing, but this is what you do. Right when you get outside the congressional hearing in D.C., you run your mouth, and I can guarantee you there's going to be a whole host of reporters. He's like, Chris, and I know you talk a lot of crap with your open mouth. They're going to want to listen to you because they're going to probably want to attain it. If you get 1 to 2 minutes with any court reporter with a microphone and you tell them that type 2 diabetes is reversible with diet and no pharmaceuticals, someone's going to get that attention. And the moment you get one person's attention, you can save one life and maybe the others if many people follow this. And this is what I plan on doing. There's so many different changes what people can make, and that it's not going to be brought up in congressional hearings. And two, what if I said, hey, I have a plan to make your meat more affordable again, but they won't let me speak at the congressional hearings? Do you think a lot of people will want to open their ears? Most likely. I got a question from Juliet, by the way.
I do know that it's gonna be difficult keeping you quiet, so I'm sure if you're there,
imagine what my mother feels. Shit.
If you're there, you're gonna be heard. At least outside in the hallways or out in front, just find a microphone and you'll get to people.
Yeah. So,
yes, Juliet Marie is asking if you're going to be a speaker at any of the upcoming meetups.
Oh, I think I'm just going as attendee and a sponsor for Columbus, Ohio. I will be speaking at the Fort Worth meetup because I'm co-hosting that with the other folks, and I actually have professional bull riding training all Labor Day weekend. I got to go fly out to Brandlin, Utah, and I'm going to be there like 8 hours a day giving the grunt. So, anyways, Fort Worth.
When what's the date? What is the date of that one?
The Fort Worth meetup is September 27th, and I just posted that. And I'm going to ask Ali if she can probably put that on her. I think she's setting it up right now because I just emailed her. And then October 11th is Reno. And I'm actually a sponsor. I'm one of the main sponsors right next to Dr. Kilt's booths at Hack Your Health. Are you going to Hack Your Health, Dr. Nelson?
Certainly will. It's in my home state.
We're gonna be sharing booths right next to each other.
I live in the free state of Florida, so yes, we'll be attending.
I thought you. So wait, did you just move there? Because I thought you were in Boston for some reason.
I was at the Boston meetup.
Gotcha.
But I have been a resident of Florida for 29 years.
Good for you. You have a much better governor in Florida. I like DeSantis, so good for you. Anyway, so I will be at Hack Your Health. I'm actually a sponsor, but they actually listed me as a backup speaker too, just because they reached out to me and they thought I'm an interesting character.
We have a question for you.
Yeah.
How can we transition funding from subsidizing big agriculture and help small farmers?
Of course, and this is what I'm going to be pushing, and I think Tom Massey is already pushing this as well too, and this is why we need to get more subsidies if we can prove. But people need to realize that and this is why I say this in more than one podcast, support your hardworking American farmers. A lot of people, even if the government doesn't do it, all of you can do it. Just like JFK always said it, right? It's not what the government, it's not what the country can do for you, it's what you can do for the country. And I think all of us can actually directly support the farmers. I'm going to send everybody a favor. Try to stop buying from a lot of your local. I still buy occasionally from Whole Foods and Sprouts, but preferably I always, on a monthly basis, sometimes even on a weekly basis, I always buy directly from the farmers. Because buying directly, farm to table, is the number one way. Not only can you confirm that you actually know what's going in your damn meat, because you know what's going on with the processing plants and all these natural flavorings they're adding to it too, but you are going to be supporting the hardworking American farmers. So if you buy directly from the farmers itself, even if it takes Congress about 10 years to get their head out of their ass to make sure they realize that they need to start funding the people that are putting real food on our plates, you guys can start doing this. So this is why I recommend everybody to start. Find a local hardworking American farmer that has quality meat next to you and buy directly from them. That's the best way to support them. And I can tell you right now, that's going to be indirectly, that's a way to bankrupt Big Pharma.
All righty. It's very easy in some states, a little bit more difficult in some others because sometimes.
She's in Missouri. She's right next to U.S. Wellness Meats, right? Aren't you, Juliet? U.S. Wellness Meats is a little bit more expensive because I know, was it John Gooden? I've met him back at the Paleo Convention 2019. But yeah, Missouri actually has a lot of farms over there too, and this is why you get in the Midwest. You know, California, Nevada, they have a few farms, but you know, we go in like the Midwest, it's a lot more open over there too.
Also, when you support your local rancher, you're also
Supporting your local
you support
butchers,
your local butcher,
because your
of
local
course.
butchers need to get affordable meats. It's all connected with the same proper environment, and this is why I almost want everybody to move off the grid. Like, screw it, get out of the cities and go to these. Yeah, and at least Juliet buys U.S. Wellness. And you know what? I actually get the reason why I like the bone marrow from U.S. Wellness Meats. They sell these bone marrows in small disc, and I eat a lot of raw bone marrow. I think it's the most healing, like, fat for your gut. And if you get the raw bone marrow disc from U.S. Wellness Meats, like, it's so easy to push the marrow out. I just like it because sometimes you buy all these big bones and you're trying to get the marrow out, and especially if you're trying to eat it raw, it's even more complicated. But one thing I like about U.S. Wellness Meats, they have the thinnest bone marrow disc that you can push it out. So, and they have a really good ground suet that you can also eat raw, or you can use the bulk amount of suet to render your own fat. It's the best thing. It's very affordable too. Because tallow is getting expensive. You notice that, right? It's like it's $15-$20 a pound now, and you could actually render it yourself for like a couple bucks a pound. There you go. Brian's been doing it since COVID.
Yeah.
And one thing I will recognize is that I'm not sure if people realize during COVID, they actually stopped selling tallow at a lot of the main like the Whole Foods stores and the health markets, we'll call them, like Sprouts, natural grocers. They stopped selling tallow. It was almost like a tactic. And then one time I went to the Whole Foods, I was always asked for the fat trimmings. I'm like, hey, do you guys have extra fat? Because sometimes they'll just because they don't use the fat trimmings, they'll just throw it out. I'm like, hey, don't throw it. That's quality fat. We can render my own fat, or we're going to use it for cooking. And the butcher told me, he's like, sorry, we're not allowed to give you the fat trimmings anymore. I'm like, this was right during COVID. I'm like, why? They're like, they think it's promoting COVID. I'm like, this is where you're like, oh my God, this is where our stupidity has hit rock bottom during COVID. But yes, that's another thing, is to buy directly from the farmers. You can get all this fat and you can render it yourself. Any other random questions? Any personal questions?
No, just remember to like, share, comment, subscribe. We do this Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. in Dr. Kill's channels and my channel. I don't have that many subscribers. Hey, go and subscribe at The Real Dr. Nelson, by the way.
Yes.
And we're going to have, well, not all of we, but if you're here and you're taking the course, we're going to be getting some education from Christopher Brandlin as well in a few weeks.
Yes, I'll be posting. So I'll be posting updates too. And Dr. Nelson, I'll look forward to seeing you at Columbus, Ohio in 2 weeks.
I will be there. It's going to be in a comedy club. They asked me to put up a routine.
Nice. Well, afterwards, we may actually be going to Dave Chappelle at night too, because he's down the street.
Okay.
Well, not, he's like 30 minutes away. So we're going to see. I'm going to confirm it afterwards too.
All right. My local butcher are telling me the price of cows seem to have reached an all-time high.
Yeah. This is why we really need to support a lot of the American farmers right now. So I almost want everybody to stop buying from the grocery stores and start immediately buying it from, like, go on strike and say, I'm never buying from a grocery store again. I'm only buying from my farmers, and buy, like, if you do it in bulk, it's very affordable too. Thank you, Juliet.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here with Christopher Brandlin, the carnivore doctor and future U.S. Congressman.
Carnivore lawyer, but I am going to be a doctor. That's too. I'm going to be a PhD doctor.
I misspoke. Carnivore lawyer. I did put it in my title on the.
That's all right.
The carnivore lawyer and future U.S. Congressman from Nevada.
Thanks.
Let me see if there were any question. All right. So Pacer Girl asks, what takes place at a meetup?
Go ahead.
You want to go ahead and say?
Sure. Yeah. Usually the meetups start off with opening kind of like testimonials. People give their healing stories because there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of healing stories from people putting everything into remission from a carnivore, animal-based diet. But then afterwards, we usually follow up with the meet and greet, and there's usually, preferably, a good meal on top of that, where you have a buffet of just nothing but meat. And that's my type of meat as well. And then some meetups, you'll watch me ride a bull right afterwards.
That will be the one on September 27th.
Yeah.
It's a good moment for community also, because many of us might be the only one in your family who's doing this, or you don't have that many people around doing following a carnivore diet or a very low carbohydrate diet, and you meet a lot of people that are doing the same thing that you are, and you hear the stories of healing from doing this, because we're not doing this just because. Almost 100% of us is doing this because we either healed or are healing some kind of problem. And probably the only one that is doing this for a long time, and I don't know if he's here today, and it's not because of health reasons, is Rick.
And Dr. Lisa Wademan, she's been doing it for like 15 years.
But even her, she's doing it for health reasons. She started doing it for health reasons. Anyways, thank you everyone for being here. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. in these same channels. How can we find you, Christopher?
Well, I think I just got banned from LinkedIn permanently, so now, I'm on. You'll see me on Facebook, Instagram, and X. But you can go to my website, chrisbrandlin.com, or if you want to go to my law firm website, if you have legal, I always do pro bono for the carnivore community. So brandlinlaw.com, and if you want to email me, the work email is sometimes fastest. It's chris@brandlinlaw.com.
All righty. Well, thank you, Chris, and thank you everyone for being here. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 6 a.m.
Thank you, Dr.